Number 1.
I finished looking over your cover letter for your job application, Ramon.
Thanks. Do you think I highlighted my communication skills sufficiently?
I do. And I think the first paragraph where you talk about your motivation for applying will really appeal to the company.
Great. I'm a bit concerned about the second paragraph, though. Any thoughts on that?
It was somewhat vague. For instance, instead of just saying you are good at cost-cutting and time management, perhaps you could add some concrete figures to indicate how you exceeded your targets at your previous job.
Thanks. That's a good idea.
Question. How will the man probably change his cover letter?
Number 2.
Hey, Jack, did you say you got your kitchen renovated last year?
Actually, it was 2 years ago, but yes.
We're thinking of getting ours done, and we were wondering if you'd recommend the renovation company you hired.
Well, they charged us a fortune and justified it by saying their work would last for years, but it's now clear they cut corners to save a few bucks. They obviously selected inferior materials for the flooring, as it already needs redoing.
Ouch, I'm beginning to wish I hadn't asked.
Sorry, it's a sore subject. I'd steer well clear of them if I were you.
Question. What does the man say about the renovation company?
Number 3.
Have you met the new manager yet?
Yeah, he seems like a pleasant guy. He said that his entire career has been in finance, though.
This is the first time we've had someone in charge who wasn't promoted from within, isn't it? I guess the company wants a fresh perspective.
I'm worried it'll be a little too fresh. We're a software development company, and managing this department requires a strong technical background.
I'm sure the company wouldn't have hired him if they didn't think he was up to the job.
I hope you're right.
Question. What does the woman suggest about the new manager?
Number 4.
Did you catch the election debate last night?
Yes, I have to say I was quite impressed with Janet Goldstein's ideas about expanding public transportation and providing more funding for recycling.
I wonder how feasible those goals are, though. She also says she'll reduce taxes for the middle class, but how can she do that if she's going to shell out huge amounts of money for her other promises?
Well, there's a budget surplus at the moment.
But that won't last long. If she has her way, the country will be running a deficit before you know it.
Question. What does the man imply about Janet Goldstein?
Number 5.
Honey, did you hear there are 2 convicts on the loose in town? It's all over the news.
Yes, I heard about it late last night. Have there been any sightings?
The news said they may have been involved in a burglary at a liquor store this morning.
Wow, that's really frightening. Are they armed?
I think so. Listen, Julian said he wanted to bike to his friend's house tonight, but I think we have to tell him to stay home, even though there are extra police patrols now.
Yes, absolutely. I don't want him out on the streets tonight.
Question. What is one thing we learn from this conversation?
Number 6.
I heard your mother was discharged from the hospital yesterday. That must be a big relief after such a serious operation.
Yes, it's good to have her back home with us. It's not all good news, though. The physician said follow-up surgery will likely be required in the months to come.
That'll be hard on her. She's in her 70s, right?
Yeah, the medication the doctors are giving her seems to be effective at controlling the symptoms for now, but unfortunately that won't be enough in the long term.
Question. What is one thing the man says about his mother?
Number 7.
How's your new freelancing career going, Annika?
It's great. My overall earnings have exceeded what I was making before, and I'm certainly enjoying the independence.
It must be nice not having a boss looking over your shoulder all the time. Are there any downsides?
Well, some weeks I'm expecting things will be quiet, and then I suddenly get swamped with a huge project out of the blue. And then the following week I'm sitting on my hands because a client has postponed something.
I can imagine that might be stressful.
Question. What does the woman say about her work?
Number 8.
Did you say that you'd taken Chemistry 203 already, Charles?
Yes, I took it a couple of semesters ago. It was tough, but the things I learned from Professor Betty have been invaluable in my other courses.
I was wondering if I should take it. It's not mandatory, right?
Right, it's not. But a couple of my professors said the lab skills you acquire in it are extremely useful to have if you're majoring in chemistry.
In that case, I'll definitely be signing up for it.
Question. What does the man say about Chemistry 203?
Number 9.
I understand that you need to find a part-time job to help cover your expenses at university. Is that correct, Kirsten?
Yes, my parents gave me what they thought was enough to cover my first year, but I'm going through my money a lot faster than I expected. That's why I came here to the Student Services office for help.
Well, there are many part-time jobs on campus. There are openings for office assistants, if you're interested.
Sounds perfect. When can I apply?
Before we get to that, I just realized this is your first semester. How are your studies coming along?
Classes are quite challenging, but I'm getting by.
As part of university regulations, students must refrain from working during their first semester. Then, if their grades are fine, they can apply for work at the beginning of the second semester. Does that sound okay to you?
Can't you make an exception? I could really use the money.
I'm afraid we can't help you.
Question. What does the man suggest the student do?
Number 10.
Dave, in the next long-range planning meeting, I'd like to recommend expanding the hotel division.
I'm afraid it's not in the cards.
Why not? I think we'll see a steady increase in guest numbers over the next few years.
My sources say headquarters wants to downsize our holdings in that division by selling a few hotels, and then focus on the airline business.
That'd be a mistake. The hospitality industry was struggling during the economic slump, but since then our hotel business has been looking up.
If the company really wants to sell, we'd be better off waiting until we can show several years of consistent profit.
We're already in the black for the year, and things will only improve as the weather warms up.
I agree, but headquarters wants to streamline operations. They're looking to offload any ventures that aren't directly related to the airline business.
But I think a case for the connection between the airline business and the hotel industry could certainly be made.
Well, I don't think they're interested. And rumor has it a few companies have already expressed interest in a couple of our hotels. I wouldn't be surprised if headquarters accepts an offer sooner rather than later.
Question. What does the man believe?
A. Alexander von Humboldt. Alexander von Humboldt made many contributions to science during the 19th century, But perhaps the most significant was the way he explained nature as an intricate web in which no single element could exist independently. This was in sharp contrast to the dominant view of his day, which focused on individual organisms and considered them in isolation. Humboldt's idea began to take shape when he embarked on a voyage that would last 5 years. Humboldt travelled extensively throughout the Americas, observing indigenous peoples, plants, and animals. It was during his travels that he began to realize that nature is best understood as the balance of countless living and non-living elements, and that human interference can disrupt this delicate balance. For instance, Humboldt noticed that logging in what is now Venezuela had an unforeseen impact on the local environment. A lack of trees caused water sources to disappear and the soil to become loose. When heavy rains fell, this soil was the source of devastating landslides. Because of his work, Humboldt is credited with being one of the first scientists to describe the concept that human influence can impact nature on a wider scale.
Questions. Number 11. What is one idea that Alexander von Humboldt introduced? Number 12. What did Humboldt observe about logging in Venezuela?
B. The Ghost Army. On June 6, 1944, the Allies launched the D-Day invasion of World War II to free Europe from Nazi Germany. The attack occurred in the French region of Normandy. However, prior to the invasion, the Allied forces used a military unit known as the Ghost Army to deceive the German forces into focusing on defending another possible target about 150 miles from Normandy. The Ghost Army employed fake vehicles and used sound recordings to mimic invading forces. Crucial to the success of the trick was the role of the famed General George Patton as the unit's commanding officer. Patton was considered unfit for a real command because of a recent scandal, so he was assigned as leader of the pretend army to make the threat more believable. The D-Day deception was highly successful, as the Nazis moved many troops away from the Allies' intended target of Normandy. After the invasion, the Ghost Army continued its operations. These were so successful that they occasionally caused a problem. Allied commanders themselves were tricked into believing, for example, that the unit's sound effects were actual Allied tanks moving out of position. On the whole, though, the Ghost Army is believed to have greatly reduced Allied casualties by weakening Nazi resistance in battles across Europe.
Questions. Number 13. What was one thing that made the Ghost Army's D-Day operation seem realistic? Number 14. What was one problem associated with the Ghost Army?
C. Cashew nuts. As more people adopt vegetarian diets, cashew nuts are becoming an increasingly popular source of healthy fats and protein. However, like many export crops grown in developing countries, their production is problematic. Cashew nuts must be removed from their shells by hand. However, the shells contain a toxic oil, and some workers who handle them suffer from blisters and skin rashes because they are not given gloves for protection. One international human rights organization has even reported cases of patients at drug rehabilitation centers being forced to process the nuts and experiencing abuse if they refuse to comply. As demand for cashew nuts grows, the government in Ghana, already a major producing country of the nuts, is encouraging even more farmers to use their land to grow cashew nuts for export. While many farmers benefit from the increased income generated by cashew nut production, some agencies warn that the decrease in land available for domestic food crop production may threaten the country's food security. Moreover, unlike domestic food crop farming, which Ghanaian women are heavily involved in, the cultivation of cash crops such as cashew nuts for export is generally controlled by men. This means that Ghana's goals for gender equality could become harder to realize.
Questions. Number 15. What does the speaker say about cashew nut processing? Number 16. What is one concern agencies have about cashew nut farming in Ghana?
D. Airline deregulation. Until 1978, when the United States deregulated its airline industry, the government controlled everything from airfares to the routes that airlines could fly. Today, however, only airline safety remains under government control. Many people have hailed deregulation as a success, citing the fact that fares have declined by around 50% since the 1970s. Research, however, has shown that fares actually declined faster in the years leading up to deregulation than in the years after it, and that such declines have had more to do with the development of fuel-efficient planes than with freer competition. Furthermore, as a result of deregulation, airlines are no longer required to schedule flights to smaller cities. Since it is harder to fill seats on planes to less popular destinations, many airlines quickly eliminated these routes. Because airports and frequent air service are key to regional development, this has had an adverse effect on smaller, less populous cities, causing them to miss out on the economic benefits that come with heavier air traffic. In fact, since deregulation, many smaller cities have been compelled to provide economic incentives such as subsidies to encourage airlines to fly to their airports.
Questions. Number 17. What has research shown about airline industry deregulation? Number 18. What has been one effect of airline deregulation on smaller cities? E. Metabolism and extinction. The metabolic rate is the rate at which an organism uses energy to perform essential functions. Researchers have discovered a possible link between an organism's metabolic rate and the probability it will go extinct. The study, which examined a period of around 5 million years, looked at fossils and living species of mollusks, such as snails and clams. The researchers found that, overall, mollusks with faster metabolisms were more likely to go extinct. Organisms with faster metabolisms require more energy, so when environmental changes decrease the amount of available nutrition, these organisms are at greater risk of starvation. However, the researchers also found that this risk is lower for species that are more widespread. Widespread species are usually better equipped to survive in diverse conditions and consume a greater variety of foods, so they are more able to adapt to environmental changes. One finding the researchers did not expect was that the average metabolic rate of all mollusks remained consistent throughout the period studied. If mollusks with low metabolisms are better able to avoid extinction, it seems logical to expect that the average metabolic rate would drop over time. However, the research findings suggest that when species with fast metabolisms go extinct, other species with fast metabolisms fill the gap they leave.
Questions. Number 19. Which organisms with fast metabolisms are least likely to go extinct? Number 20. What finding about mollusks surprised the researchers?
F. You have 10 seconds to read the situation and question number 21.
We've got a range of items that make great gifts. This big display is for the volcano kit. It's fun to build and includes instructions for making fake lava, which appeals to kids who like science. It's out of stock, unfortunately, but we should receive more in about a week. We also have an electronics kit. There's one over here for customers to try out. It's very entertaining. But to be honest, it doesn't really live up to its promise to teach kids about circuitry. Over here is our dinosaur fossil dig set, which my 7-year-old daughter loves. However, the box can be misleading. It says ages 4 and up. But in my experience, kids under 7 aren't likely to have the patience for it. Finally, we have this superhero action figure. Don't be fooled. It actually teaches about anatomy. If you push these buttons, the various body parts light up, and a voice recording explains what they are.
Now mark your answer on your answer sheet.
G. You have 10 seconds to read the situation and question number 22.
Recently, there have been reports of spam getting through our email filter. Our IT department is working on improving the filter, but going forward, we must be more vigilant about our internet security. Firstly, and I know you've been told this before, be cautious with emails from unknown addresses, and do not open any unsolicited attachments as they could contain viruses. If you have opened any recently, let me know immediately. As a basic precaution, please also confirm that your firewall is on as soon as you have returned to your computers. In addition, I'll be asking you all to take a mandatory online training program. I'll send the link in an email after this meeting. I apologize for the short notice, but please complete the training by the end of the week, as we would like to introduce a daily security checklist as soon as possible.
Now, mark your answer on your answer sheet.
H. You have 10 seconds to read the situation and question number 23.
We have sleeping bags to fit all camping styles and conditions. This one's my personal favorite, the Wilderness Dreamer. It's filled with high-quality goose down, and it's waterproof too, so you'll be warm even on winter nights. I wouldn't use it during summer or when warm weather is expected, though, as you'd be uncomfortably hot. Over here, we have the Trail Relax and the slightly more expensive Cozy Camper. They're both 3-season bags, which means they'll keep you comfortable in every season except winter. Both models are filled with synthetic material, so they're light and easy to wash. But the Cozy Camper has the extra protection of a waterproof outer shell. This means you can camp without a tent or any other shelter. Finally, there's the Nature Cocoon. This one's so popular, it's out of stock for the next month. It's filled with down and has a waterproof shell.
Now mark your answer on your answer sheet.
I. You have 10 seconds to read the situation and question number 24.
Well, any weed killer with dicamba in it would be highly effective, and it wouldn't harm your grass at all. The thing is, though, that chemical has been included in the recent herbicide ban in our state. However, you can get organic products like Broadleaf Natural at most garden stores. They might work if the weed is not well established yet. One easy solution if the weed is in an isolated patch is just to put a plastic sheet over it to shut out the sun for a couple of weeks. Otherwise, you'll need to first rake any areas containing the weed. That helps to loosen it and makes it easier to pull out by hand. Be sure to wear gloves when you do it to prevent blisters, and whatever you do, you'll have to buy some grass seed and fertilizer to fix the areas the weed has been removed from.
Now mark your answer on your answer sheet.
J. You have 10 seconds to read the situation and question number 25.
This is a great time of year to hit the trails. There are 4 guided hikes offered this season. The 3-hour rainbow hike begins every day at 1 p.m. and goes through an area where the fall colors are currently at their peak. There are steep climbs though, so it's not recommended for kids under 12. Then there's the all-day birdwatcher hike, which takes you near the habitats of the park's most beautiful birds. That hike begins every weekday morning at 9. The sunset hike will take you to a meadow where, on a clear evening, you can get a breathtaking view of the sun setting behind the mountains. This easy hike begins every Saturday at 4 p.m. Finally, the lake hike, which is another evening hike, is popular with kids because of all the fireflies along the trail, but current repair work means the trail won't be open until next month.
Now, mark your answer on your answer sheet.
This is an interview with Jason Wyndham, who runs a restaurant consulting company.
Jason, thanks for being on our program today.
Thank you for having me.
So, to begin with, could you tell us a bit about exactly what a restaurant consultant does?
Sure. Basically, my job is to fill in the gaps in a restaurant owner's knowledge. Many restaurateurs are experts when it comes to the food preparation side of the business, but they may not be as adept at advertising, managing staff, or maximizing profits. Approximately 1/3 of restaurants fail in their first year of operation, and another third just barely scrape by. I try to provide advice that will move restaurants into the final 1/3 that thrive. I come in and observe their operations, carry out customer surveys, and provide recommendations on things they can improve.
Why do so many restaurants fail?
Well, one of the main reasons is the cutthroat competition. In today's economy, finding a way to differentiate yourself is essential. We work closely with our clients to research what customers in their area want and then find ways to provide it. It could be anything from an innovative menu to a more welcoming decor. One of our clients, for example, was on the verge of bankruptcy, even though her dishes were some of the tastiest in the city. We helped her to innovate by taking traditional foods and serving them in a unique way, which helped her get back into the black within just a few months.
Many people may have the impression that consultants are just for big restaurant chains. Do you do any work for smaller, independent restaurants?
Yes, in fact, that's the largest segment of our business. Of course, some businesses have initial concerns about whether or not they can afford our fees, but in the long term, they almost always end up with more money in their pockets as a result of our recommendations.
Can you elaborate on how you help your clients?
Well, one of the things we do is collect a great deal of data. For example, we're able to give restaurant owners a new perspective on their menu by analyzing each dish based on factors including popularity, price, and cost of ingredients. We then often suggest that the owner either remove or rework items that are eating into their profits. For instance, we may help them find a new supplier that will save them money without sacrificing quality. We also offer menu redesigns that can increase sales by up to 30%. By emphasizing the dishes with high profit margins, you can increase orders of those foods that will improve your earnings the most.
Does your firm have a specialty?
Well, one thing we always focus on is improving customer loyalty. A lot of businesses just give out cards that offer rewards to repeat customers, but we go far beyond that. We've found that while people will put up with an occasional slip-up in the kitchen that leads to an overcooked dish, they won't tolerate servers who are rude or inattentive. Therefore, we stress thorough training programs that produce knowledgeable, courteous servers. That can have a huge impact on a customer's impression of their dining experience and makes them much more likely to come back. We've also found that engaging with customers using social media is highly effective. Responding to customers who leave online reviews, even negative ones, can do wonders for a business. Not only does it provide excellent feedback, but it helps greatly with word-of-mouth advertising.
Well, it sounds like a fascinating line of work. Thanks so much for telling us about it today.
It was my pleasure.
Questions. Number 26. According to Jason, what must restaurants do to survive? Number 27. What does Jason say about getting customers to return?